Okay, so let's talk about the difference between a manual adjusting versus a self-adjusting brake backer plate. So how this actually works. Let's talk about how this works first before we get into the differences, because if we don't talk about how it works first, then you won't understand what it's doing over here for the self-adjusting side. So when this is bolted onto the back, that it mounts the brake to the flange on the back of the spindle, okay, on the actual axle itself. Very easy to replace. Some have bolts already on the spindle, and others have bolts that go through the other side, and then you'd have nuts on this side. So it just depends. They're all the same. It just doesn't matter how you do it. But look at your application first to understand how to replace them. The magnet, okay, this is supposed to be rubbing and riding very close, if not touching, the hub surface, or what they call the hub face. What this does is anytime you touch your brakes, it energizes, it turns into essentially an electromagnet. It sucks itself to the side of, or the face of the hub, and depending on which direction you're going is depending on which way it actually brakes. So if your hub is spinning this direction, then it's going to grab and it's going to push back this direction, which is pushing out this portion of the brakes. Okay, and that's how a brake application is applied. Adjusting, we need to always make sure that we adjust, and when we adjust, it's moving your brake shoe out so that it's always up in the proper alignment for the hubs itself. Okay, so now let's move over to a self-adjusting version, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so this is a self-adjusting version. Still the same exact concept. You still have the magnet, you still have the arm, you still have your shoes and the springs. Everything is exactly the same, with exception of a couple of extra parts. All right, stainless steel braided cable here that goes around a pulley, and then down here to what we call the self-adjuster finger. Now there's a technical name for it, but I call it the finger. All right, so we'll go with that. And what this does is every single time this has a brake application forward, okay, that's the key. It's a forward brake application, not when you're going in reverse. You can see how the little finger down here is actually moving, and when it finishes that brake adjustment or that brake application, it adjusts. So as you make a brake application, it'll go up and down, up and down. You just heard that click, and now it just is self-adjusted. So every time it does that, it's going to give you the perfect adjustment, so they say. Now, here's the disclaimer behind this, okay? The self-adjusted one, there are little notches here, and with those notches, what happens is they have to get to a certain point where that finger can grab. Can you adjust these? Yes, you can. The problem is that you can go overboard with adjusting, because they do have adjustment holes on the back. You can adjust them, okay? Same thing on the back as this one, but if you go too far with this one, with the manual adjustment, you can back it off. With this one, it becomes sometimes nearly impossible, and that's why they recommend not adjusting. So when we put these on as a installer, we will adjust them just so that we get some drag. Outside of that, we let it do its job itself. Okay, so now that we've talked about the kind of the ins and outs of what the brake backing plate looks like, we're actually going to go show you how to fully adjust a manual adjusting backing plate. You can pick. I prefer the screwdriver, but you can also use the what they call a brake adjusting spoon, and that's the shape of it. It's supposed to give you a little bit more leverage. It also has kind of a neat little scoop on there, so it hooks I find that it's annoying. So we're going to use this, okay? You don't need to go long on a screwdriver, but this is a 5/16 blade tip for a flat screwdriver. I wouldn't go any shorter than this. I'm not sure. I don't have a tape measure to tell you, but a little more leverage is better because you're going to be fighting the spring that the manual adjuster, so moving down over to here, this spring here is actually sitting within these notches. So as you stick your screwdriver into the back, it's going to give you more leverage on actually overcoming the tension of the spring and also overcoming the notches that are sitting on the spring itself. So that's why I prefer the screwdriver. This is probably about 10-12 inches long, so I wouldn't go any shorter than that. Something about this size. So we're behind the backer plate here where we're actually going to do the brake adjustment. You can do this with or without the tire on. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. The adjustment is going to be the same regardless. So we can use our flat blade screwdriver here. And you want to be gentle. You don't want to break it or crack it, but we want to pull that off, set this off to the side where it's safe, where you're not going to lose it. Now this is going to be a lot of feel. You can still see inside there. It's going to be hard on camera, but with a flashlight you can actually see inside there. So what you want to do is you want to stick the flat blade screwdriver in, and you want to kind of get the end of the screwdriver blade into one of the knurls on the adjuster. And when you go from axle to ground, that's the direction we're going, you're going to tighten. If you go from ground to axle and how you're prying the adjuster, then you're going to loosen, okay? So right now we're going to start up here. I'm going to move this flashlight back just a hair, and we're going to push down with our screwdriver. Did I do it? Okay. And we're going to adjust it. And while we're adjusting it, we're going to give the hub a spin forward in the direction of travel. So a couple more turns. And now we're starting to hear the brakes drag. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to actually get it to the point where this has so much friction on it I can barely move it. So we're going to put a couple more turns on it. And now we're getting good drag. So I'm going to go another turn and test it. Now we're getting more. Another turn, and now we've pretty much stopped it. Okay, so now once we do that, we want to rotate it backwards and make sure we have the same resistance, then back forward. Okay, now that we have tightened it, we want to loosen the shoe itself. As it goes out, there's a pivot point at the top where your magnet pushes. When you do this, what you want to be able to do is to get the shoes even all the way out on your drum. If you don't, then you're only going to partially adjust it, and when that happens, now you're not going to get the full braking force. So we have to adjust all the way out till you get good friction on the hub, and then once you get all the way out, you rotate it both directions a few times and you adjust it again if need be. Then you want to back off the adjustment just so you hear a little bit of brake drag. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to back off and we're going to get the proper adjustment for this actual brake. So we're going to stick our screwdriver back in. Now remember, we were going from axle to ground, which is tightening. Now we need to go the other way. We need to go ground to axle. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to push this direction until we get it start to loosen. Okay, now you can hear, I don't know if you guys can hear that effectively. Let me move the microphone over here a little bit better. See if we can pick that up. Okay, you can hear a little bit of that grinding sound, and that grinding sound is what we're looking for. There's a little bit of friction, but not enough to the point where it won't spin. Which one's better? There really isn't a better or worse or better or best. The key is do you want maintenance free, not have to adjust it and let it do it itself, or do you want to be the one in control of how it's adjusted, how tight your brakes, when they grab, when they don't grab? Because the drawback to this, although it's a good maintenance free option, it may not be fully adjusted, because remember, as it wears, it has to wear a certain point before it clicks to the next adjustment point with the brake application. So there could be a possible delay in braking. Not poor braking, but it could be a slight delay. It's not going to grab as quickly. Whereas with this one, you can control how it grabs, when it grabs, and how much it grabs. If you want a softer grab, you can adjust it with a little more play. There isn't a better or best or better or worst. The key is that what you want to look at is what's best for you. If you don't want to have to deal with a lot of the adjusting every 3,000 miles for this one, then get this one. Okay? Now, I should say that most trailers today are going to be equipped with the manual adjusting. It's cheaper. They're about a third to half the cost depending on the brand. And the manual adjusting is pretty much what's on most trailers. Now, the self-adjusting is becoming more and more popular, and they've actually come down in cost. So a lot of companies will opt to push you in this direction so there's less maintenance. It's considered maintenance free. So you don't have to adjust it every 3,000 miles. You still need to pull it off once a year, check your bearings, check your seals, check your brakes, make sure that nothing has failed, okay? But the wear and tear is going to be about the same, okay? Again, 3,000 miles is what I recommend for this, every 3,000 miles, and you can get a good adjustment, or anytime you feel your brakes are not performing up to what you believe they should be, okay? Keep in mind that your brakes, when you set your brakes up, this is what most people won't tell you, is that you want to have the truck stop the truck and the trailer stop the trailer, all right? Or if you're in a motorhome, you want the motorhome to stop the motorhome and the trailer to stop the trailer, okay? Because if you're towing a trailer or a dolly or anything that has brakes involved, whether it's electric brakes, hydraulic brakes, doesn't matter what it is, but you want to make sure that when you set it up that the trailer is not stopping the entire thing. It was not meant to do that. If you feel that the trailer is, when you hit the brakes on the trailer and they're grabbing too hard and it's slowing the truck and trailer down, now you're going to burn your brakes up too fast because it's not meant to do that. If you feel like you have to push more pedal on the truck when you're trying to slow or brake, then you have too much pushing on the truck, and it means there's not enough brake application on the trailers. The idea is to give you guys the knowledge and the tips and the tricks from a technician side, and also as a full-time RVer, what I do on my own RV itself, to be able to help you move forward so that you don't have to always rely on the mechanic shops, which are very overwhelmed right now with a lot of RVs. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get something out of it. Feel free to ask questions if you have them, and as always, enjoy the journey.